Okay, who has questions? No,
Yeah, microphone or just speak
just speak up. That's fine.
Okay. First, I want to say how grateful I am to be here. This is such a lovely space and community practice, and it's just incredible. And being in your presence it draws me in. Presence. Thank you so much. I want to better understand, as a practitioner, the importance of the topics that we discussed today.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of them sound very conceptual.
Yeah.
Right? Like when I practice, I don't think about my next rebirth. And I don't even care so much what type of dukkha comes up. Right? It's either 6 hour or dispassion. So what would you want me? What is most important for me, or what would you want me to get from everything that we've discussed today?
Yeah. So when it comes to the birth, I know it was way out there because we talked about so many different realms and the cosmology and everything. But what I want you to pick up, if you can, and when you read the books, is primarily looking at the psychological aspects of it. So, there are certain defilements or some certain levels of certain kinds of behaviors that are associated with these different realms. So when we talk about realms, yes, you can talk about it from the cosmology of it, but you can also talk about it in terms of it being in the mind. So just being aware of what is present and what is not present. Is there a jealous mind, or is there a grateful mind? Is there an angry mind, or is there a calm and collected mind? Is there a unforgiving mind, or is there a compassionate mind? Being able to recognize those so that you can let go. Now, tomorrow I'll be talking about bhava, and that's a big one, and that's going to talk about three things actually. So bhava is one aspect, and then we're going to talk about the formations, which are rooted in three unwholesome states and three wholesome states: greed, hatred, delusion; non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. And then we're going to talk about consciousness with the different defilements that are possible and how to let go of them. So really what you want to pick up is how to maneuver these different defilements, if they are present in the mind, using the 6 R's and relaxing tightness and tension. That's the ultimate thing, really, is how, all of this could be saved up into one statement: observe and 6R. That's it. So this is all just an elaboration. And for those who are interested in the cosmology, I'm giving that perspective as well. And with the dukkha aspect, it's also important to understand that just because anybody does understand dukkha, maybe there are some components which you still find pleasurable, which are ultimately dukkha. So I'm covering as much as possible, the wide array of what is dukkha. I mean, I could say everything is dukkha, but what is everything? What does that entail in the mental experience and the physical experience? So from that perspective, you want to pick up, how does the mind identify with it if it does arise? How does the mind, does it take the dukkha as me, mine, and myself? That's ultimately it. And that's the repetition that I'm going to be talking about. How does the mind identify with any of these states? And if it does, how do you let go of them? That's the primary goal here. Yeah.
Okay, piggybacking on what you said.
Yeah.
All you have to do is observe in 6R. But the practice that you gave us yesterday seemed like there was more direction to it than just observing what comes up.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit confused, and this morning I tried to follow exactly but I could not go the steps of looking at each and analyzing each of the 5 aggregates. So please help.
Yeah. So as I said, this practice is more of a contemplation practice that I think people will naturally grow into. I just wanted to introduce it as a contemplation practice that could be used as a aside. But in terms of the actual practice, the way to do it would be to just don't bring up anything. Let it just come up. If you notice form, let go of form, and just understand it's impermanent, and dukkha and so on. If you notice feeling, whatever comes up. I gave a little structure to it because it's just a guided meditation, but whatever comes up first and foremost, that's fine. Even in the suttas, you'll see that he starts with form, then feeling, the perception, and so on, because it's just from the densest aspect all the way to the subtlest, which is consciousness. He does that same thing with the 4 foundations of mindfulness. There is an idea that we have to do that categorically, even though he does categorize it in those 4, but it's whatever comes up that you just observe and let go if there's any identification there. And the 5 aggregates, I chose the 5 aggregates because, they are the composite of basically the ways and means and experience of all of existence. So just continuously kind of letting go of any subtle identities around those is the way to do it.
Yeah, thanks, Delson, for your time and energy. I have a question that's the intersection of personal and Dhamma. So I believe I understand the idea of being an island to yourself, a refuge to yourself, right? And not letting your happiness or peace of mind even depend on relationships with other people, right? And the personal aspect is I'm happily married 25 years, with my husband. So I do think about the fact that when I think about I'm of the nature to lose those that I love, he's someone that, comes to mind. And that's hard, right? That's one part. The other part is, in Anguttara Nikaya 456, right? When this happily married couple asked the Buddha, what can we do to be, reborn together? And he kind of tells them what to do. So it almost feels like, go for the goal and, island to myself and never be reborn again, or do some kind of, I'm not a monk, I'm a lay follower, enjoy the pleasures of the world, whatever there is, and, go for that. Or, I know which is the higher one, but I don't know, I just feel torn. I guess because I'm attached to my husband, that's why, and my kids, so. Anyway, I just wanted to, any comments? I feel like the Dhamma is giving me 2 answers.
Yeah, don't think too much. Well, I think if you think about it in this way, that, you realize that you have such a limited time with the people that you love. That's one way of looking at it. So would you rather spend that time getting upset and fighting with them? Or would you spend that time cultivating wholesome feelings with them? That's one way of looking at it. But yeah, if you want to follow the lay life completely, then there are instructions for that as well. There's instructions to, the Buddha has given instructions. How do I get to this heaven? How do I get to that realm, for a lay person? In fact, there's Digha Nikaya 31, where he gives an advice to lay people, like how do you manage your money? How do you manage your finances? How do you manage your life and lifestyle? And what are your responsibilities in society? What are your responsibilities to each other as partners and spouses, or as mother and father and child, and vice versa, and employees and employers, and all of that. So it's just a matter of where your mind is inclined to, and then go with it.
Thank you.
Doug.
I don't know if this one is slightly off topic, but in terms of contemplation and affects my practice, what I see are, there's objects that come up, and there's qualities of awareness, but there's a third thing that seems to be the field of awareness itself, which feels a lot subtler than the other ones, but over the long run has a huge effect, maybe because it's working in the background there a little bit, but I don't hear much talk about it.
So this is actually referred to as the signless state, and that was one of the goals for this practice that I introduced yesterday. As I said, it doesn't have to be so structured as I did with the guided meditation. I structured it in such a way so that we didn't have to spend so much time and just get to the points. But you can use any framework, whether it is the one that I use, which is 147, or 143, or 6 sets of 6, or whatever. But all of that basically gets you to that field of awareness that you're talking about, which is the signless state. And there is mention of it in the suttas. I'll be talking about it later when I talk about nibbana and nirodha. And the signless state is basically, I've given this analogy before. It's you flash your light, you turn on your flashlight, you point it to the sky, and imagine there's nothing in there, in the sky and in space, and it's just this light of awareness that just continues but doesn't land on anything. It's also known as anidasanam vijnanam, and I call that non-manifestive or non-reflective awareness. If you can get to that, that is a subtler state than quiet mind, because quiet mind is more like the mind itself as an object. But here, you soften the edges of the mind, and it's just, you can call it pure awareness or whatever it might be, but it's basically the mind is so shut down that there's an iota of consciousness, and that consciousness is dependent upon a little bit of some formation or another that's there. And in that subtle state, you don't want to do anything but just keep everything relaxed. Literally, don't do anything. And when something comes up, in the seeing of that itself, the everything softens. If you do anything more than that, then you come out of it, and there's too much effort going on, too much tension and tightness around the mind.
Sometimes it feels to me like we're sitting here in the room and there's all these people and stuff here, or we could take everybody out of here and the room would be empty. But in either case, it still has the same walls and ceiling and floor. And so oftentimes I'm sitting there with this stuff going through and it feels, empty. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel emptiness at the same time. And
Yeah.
that rather than get rid of the objects, I just
Yeah.
do the thing.
Right. Because all objects are inherently empty,
Yeah.
empty of self.
What about the space element? How does that, space?
Yeah, you mean like we have the five or six elements, actually, if you think about space and consciousness.
What is?
So, within the body, internally, it's talking about the different spaces, like the space of the ears, the nostrils, other parts of the body, other parts where just a space between things. But the space element is also that experience, you could say, of infinite space or even nothingness. So when you go into infinite space, the mentality of that is the space element. It's basically the mind experiencing space element there. And then the consciousness element is the mind itself. And mind is made up of contact, feeling, perception, intention, and attention. So consciousness element is wider than the space element. If you think about it in terms of subtleties, so the densest is the earth element, and then after that water element, and then after that fire, and then after that air, and then space, and then consciousness. Because when we talk about mind as an element, because what would you call mind? Is mind the brain? Or is mind in here? Or is mind in here? Or isn't mind all pervasive in the body? Because the mind is connected to other minds as well. You send out loving kindness to other beings, they experience it. And they're experiencing it through the transmission, through the medium of space, the space element. So mind and space. So mind is subtler and more malleable than space, but space is used as a information network highway to transmit loving kindness, to radiate and pervade loving kindness and compassion or whatever it might be.
Yeah, yesterday we talked about causes and condition. It has to be right for something to happen. Would that mean that everything is always happening at the right time and the right place because of causes condition? Because sometimes when things happen to us, we say, oh, it wasn't the right time, therefore it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So is there a question I'm asking would be, is there a right time and a wrong time, or is it it's always the right time?
It's always the right time.
But the cause and condition was not right at the time for me to understand that.
And it was right for that time for it not to be right. No, it's like this. So we're going to get into some deep stuff now. What is time? You know, time is subjective. Time is, there is no time. There really is no time. So, when we talk about sitting for a certain amount of time and all of these things, that's just happening in our subjective awareness. That I sat for 30 minutes, or I sat for 3 hours, or whatever it might be. And, we say that we are 30 years old, or 60 years old, or 80 years old. And that's just because of the consensus agreement that this is the amount of time that's spent. Our time is different from the time that an ant feels time, or a deva feels time, or any other animal feels time. So the right time, when we talk about that, it's more like the causes and conditions were ripe for that. Remember yesterday when I read the sutta where the Buddha saw that the time is ripe, or the mind, I should say, is ripe for Rahula to experience arahatship. It wasn't that it was the right time, it was just that the causes and conditions were in place for that to happen. Yes. Yes.
So, how do these concepts form in our mind?
Yeah. So time or any other concept is formed through our process of learning. As we grow up, we learn certain concepts. Now, you all will agree that this is the color white, right? Unless you're colorblind. Maybe even actually, if you are colorblind, you would still say it's white. But how do I know that you are experiencing the same white I'm experiencing? It's just a consensus agreement that this is the color white. But your experience of white might not be the same experience of me seeing white, but somehow we're just in agreement there. The same with any other concepts. One of the most mundane and fundamental ones is like this table. This table is a table as long as there is this wooden piece here, and then there's these 4 legs. But is it still a table when you take off one leg? Hopefully you don't, because I'm sitting here. But, anything is a concept. And the thing is, the conditioned mind thinks in concepts. That's why Nibbana is non-conceptual. You have to come to a point. And that's why the signless state is as close to being non-conceptual as possible, where there is no conceit there, empty of self, signless because there's no object, and undirected.
So it's, if we, with the concept, like let's say, the one that is very vivid to me is the smell,
Yeah,
right? So, smell of a rose, and if I have to describe it to you, the word
yeah,
may not be exactly what I'm experiencing.
exactly.
So it's a very different from a true experience.
Yes.
So
Everything we experience is experienced through concepts. Everything we experience.
So couldn't that same thing be applied to jhana?
Yes, absolutely. Your experience of jhana could be different from my experience of jhana,
Absolutely.
and her experience of jhana, and his experience of jhana.
So then we could get to maybe a way of a consensus of what that
Right.
experience is.
Right.
Or maybe should be, or how it is described.
Yeah. And so in the suttas, with the factors of the jhanas, which is just primarily the piti and sukha in the first jhana with the thinking and examining thought, we all know what that means, but our subjective experience of that can be different,
Yes.
And that's with anything, even the Dhamma itself. So we have to see that all concepts, even the concepts in the Dhamma, are really the raft. As long as it takes you from one shore to the far shore, as long as it takes you to Nibbana, right? And in that process, you let go of that concept. Don't mistake, right? You have the finger pointing to the moon. Don't mistake the finger for the moon. So it's the same thing. Yeah, I mean, using that example of the smell of the rose, it's the same thing as trying to describe Nibbana, which we'll try to do on the last day, by the way. We can give you examples of what it isn't. I always talk about this example of sugar. I can write a whole PhD on the taste of sugar. I can tell you it's not bitter, it's not spicy, it's not sour, but it's sweet. Well, what does that mean? It's sweet. I could either spend thousands of hours writing a PhD on it, or I can just give you a granule of sugar and you can try it and you'll know what that means.
Or it may mean something different.
And I was just going to say that. Yeah, thank you for reading my mind.
So with the Dhamma, so we say, letting go of this Dhamma piece, it's like the whole concept around the jhana itself, dissolve it, let it go, and just observe, just experience.
Experience, that's it.
Experience are coming up and go, and
That's it. And yeah, so even dependent origination, whatever we're talking about here with regards to dependent origination, it's all concepts to allow you to continue to let go. That's it. And for some people, they require a little bit more for their mindset, more information. And some people, it's just, they think in different concepts. Some people think in allegories, some people think in similes, some people think in color, some people think in sound, some people think in musical terms, some people think in military terms. And so there's a vast array of concepts that you can dive into as, let's say, a Dhamma teacher, either from experience or from reading about it and correlating it, so that it allows the listener to understand the deeper elements of it, for lack of a better word. Yes, Jordan.
Well, first of all, it was a wonderful ride through the guided practice last night, and starting from a very basic level, very well understood, using various objects of meditation and correlating. I think as I saw it through the Brahma Viharas and jhanas both, and kind of landing with language that was really new to me hearing, but not to my experience, and that is when you said, now don't do anything. And then you used another word, you said just rest there. And that was, these are really simple words, but they're really profound because, they gave a concept to an experience that, we probably all had in some ways or another. It was really great with this crowd because, we're all, we're all experienced and practiced at this, and so it was a wonderful ride. But I'm just wondering, is there a kind of an alignment that you might recommend I look at to move from one state to another? Because typically I'm not in a retreat mode. I'm in a let's get her done mode.
Yeah.
And then, okay, I've got an hour and a half. And so, I kind of start like you do, but sometimes I'm not sure about fumbling around to introducing another object of meditation, or letting go of objects altogether, and just, you know, so it's sort of like, okay, you know, once I can get to equanimity, I feel like I'm kind of like, you know, I'm kind of on the right road, but is there a sort of an axiom that you kind of can refer to say, you know, it's sort of, these are, if this is, if this is such and such, then it's a good time to let go,
Hmm.
go in this direction, or
Hmm.
move more away from directing loving kindness to resting in equanimity. I mean, you know, can you offer a little more language around how you built that guided practice?
Okay, so my intention with the guided practice was to basically introduce you guys to understanding how everything is impermanent. So taking you through, you know, the loving kindness, taking you through radiating in all directions, in each direction and in all directions, was a means to allow the mind to get collected, to get some level of collectedness, but at the same time, some level of equanimity and expansion. So that you don't start off the contemplation with a mind that is tight. Because as soon as you start the contemplation with a mind that is tight, you might misperceive what's going on with the form, the feeling, the perception, the formations, and the consciousness. And that tightness and tension can cause the mind to get into a state where that sense of self rings alarm bells, and it's like, no, I can't look at this. This is too much for me. But if you relax and keep the mind expansive, and then you turn your mind towards that, because you have that foundation of equanimity, that was my intention, to bring some foundation of equanimity there. So you can look at things as they are without being affected by them, without your sense of self being like, no, I don't want to look there. And then once you start to look at it, then you develop a further level of equanimity. So what I'm also telling you is some of the parameters to look for when you do the meditation on your own is you start to notice that there's a deeper level of equanimity, there's a deeper level of disenchantment, and the mind gets into the signless. So the mind just drops everything as an object and just rests in that clarity. And that's let's say the last endpoint of this particular practice, where the next step is just over the edge into cessation. Nirodha.
So you're saying, like, there's nothing to do at a certain point, but just to let go or relax.
Yeah.
Or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
letting it unwind.
Yeah.
Letting it get unwind.
Here's another way of looking at it. Whether it's this contemplation practice or whether it's the Brahmavihara practice, all of these are engaging that part of the mind that feels like it has to do something. That's all. But then when you get to a point where the mind that feels like it has to do something is relaxed, then you don't do anything. So the contemplation of the 5 aggregates is more for that. So I'm saying you don't need to analyze very deeply into it either. You don't need to investigate to a point where you're trying to get some insight. You're just engaging that part of the mind that feels like it has something to do. And then when it lets go, don't do anything. Don't add to it. Don't take away anything. Just let it be.
So that's the pivot.
That's the pivot.
And this course shall be known as the pivot.
Just kind of following up on that, when you were going through the meditation, I noticed that there was a moment where, and I thought it originally was walking forward, where I winked out, because it was like, I was like, I was following him here, and it seems like he's over here, even though I think I was following. And it was strange, it was like, what happened? But I just relaxed it and continued along with it, but it was just a split second.
Yeah.
What would you say that was?
Let's talk later.
I got more context.
So, from the signless state, has your experience been that people have cessation and come in and out of that with no full Naroda, no Nibbana, but they kind of blink out without that full-blown Nibbana experience, and then maybe sometimes they do fall all the way out and come back.
Yes.
So is that, would you say that that is similar to the territory you've seen in the higher jhanas where people have that kind of tipping out point?
Mm-hmm.
And some of them have the experience of Nibbana and some of them just have cessation and come back?
Yes. Yes. With the signless state, what can happen is it's so subtle, just like quiet mind, but even subtler than that. It's like you were somewhere, or were you? You can't even tell. And whatever follows after that will allow, the mind to understand what actually was experienced. It is an oh wow moment that happens.
So wasn't that discernment that you said that was really
Yes.
important at that time?
That's right. The discernment is basically, so what you put in matters so that you know what comes out. In other words, you need the right view to start with, and you need the path to start with. And then the discernment, that is the discernment to be able to recognize what happened just prior and what happened just after. That will allow you to let go even deeper and verify or confirm for yourself what exactly happened. Yes?
This is interesting because I've been just basically doing the jhana practice for a long time, and I thought the signless came after the jhanas, like at the end of the jhanas, jhana 8.5. But I see now, are you just teaching it as a contemplation that you can get there? Am I understanding correctly?
So the contemplation is just it's a bypass
Right,
to go there.
right. It's like taking the shortcut.
Yeah. Shortcut to Nibbana. That's your sequel.
Okay then.
Yeah.
So, talking about the shortcut, that in practical terms, so the person coming off the street, to try to apply that shortcut to a new meditator,
No.
I'm guessing, no way. You've got to do the jhana practice.
Yes.
Okay, it's not
Yep.
so short.
Yeah, I know, but
So still the recommended path for a new meditator.
yeah, for sure.
Solid jhana practice, and then when the conditions are correct, introduce them to the sign.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
So the way I understood the practice yesterday was to try to pinpoint at what point I start to identify with,
Mm-hmm.
Feeling, perception, whatever's coming up, and then like recognizing it and just
Mm-hmm.
backing off. But then it made me think, so the mind itself is an aggregate then, correct? Like wouldn't, like if I'm thinking, I backed off, or I'm the one meditating, or anything remotely like that, like my mind needs to be liberated, all that is still identification with
That's right.
correct?
That's right. The dispassion comes when all of that disappears.
Delson, would you not say that the path to this deeper level of dispassion comes through being dispassionate to those, the mind is doing this, I am meditating, blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, of course, definitely. But it just depends on the faculties of a mind. Some can get it faster, and some take some more time.
Right. It's just that I know in my experience, if I had I am meditating, I saw it as a sign that I'm not going in the right direction. but actually just being dispassionate towards that puts me deeper into dispassion.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
Who is dispassionate?
Yeah, that's the other level. That's the whole other level. Who is dispassionate?
Let me answer that.
Yes.
Is five aggregates the same as Nama-rupa, or?
Yes. Yes.
But then, if you look at the dependent origination, this consciousness comes before Nama-rupa.
That's right.
But in five aggregates, consciousness is part of the five aggregates.
That's right.
So, is it separate or together?
I'm sorry?
So are the five aggregates, so Nama-rupa is not five aggregates then?
They are.
Okay, I'm confused now.
Well, I guess we have a consciousness link, Nama-rupa link, but there's consciousness here again.
Yeah. So what is the Nama-rupa? So the rupa is form. The Nama, contact through which you have feeling, perception, intention, that's the formations, and attention through which consciousness flows. So these are faculties, these are mental faculties through which the aggregates flow. So through feeling, there is the feeling aggregate. Through perception, there is the perception aggregate. Through rupa, there's the form aggregate. Through intention, there's the formations aggregate. And through attention, there's the consciousness aggregate. If you want to be a little bit more confused, why is it then that there's contact after sixth sense base, but it's also there in Nama? Yeah. Because the contact there is a process, an active process that happens. In the faculty of mentality, it is a field or an instrument for contact to happen. So just as you are able to see through your eyes, hear through your ears, contact as a process can arise because of the instrument of contact that's present at Nama, at mentality. The process of feeling can arise because of the instrument of feeling at mentality. Likewise with perception, intention, and attention.
Can you repeat, sorry, you said attention, consciousness flows through the attention, formations went through intention, anything through perception?
Perception through perception.
I think we should add color and form.
Yeah, color and form.
Because
Yeah.
without, I mean, I see forms, but without color, I don't know exactly. I can
Yeah.
also.
Yeah, that's true. Color and form. Yeah. So when we talk about the form aggregate, that is form in terms of the solidity or any of the elements, but adding to it the color. Shape, yeah. Yes.
In the context of what you were talking about today, in terms of the different realms, one of the things that came up for me was near-death experiences.
Yes.
People who have experienced gatekeepers, people who have experienced Jesus, people who have experienced Mary. Some people who have been in the nothingness state and then seen themselves, in a bed where they were dying and being able to try to connect with them. How would you take that and put it in the context of what we were talking about today?
So a near-death experience is also the mind experiencing the dying process. It's just not come to full completion. So the dying process always happens in the mind regardless. So, seeing angels or seeing Jesus or seeing devas or seeing the nothingness or seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and all of this is all happening through the process of mentality. It's just not, it's near death because it hasn't completed the entire process. There's something calling it back. And the ability for the mind to kind of see what's going on around it, you could see somebody's having an operation done on them or surgery done on them and they can just see it. That's mind looking up and seeing that, experiencing that. Yeah.
To follow up on, similar to his question, but mine was, you had discussed the decline in the senses
Yeah.
You know, starting out, the smell was the first sense to going, mine was the last. My question for you is, well, how long does this process take? I know some cultures have rules about not moving the body
Yeah.
because they want to make sure that the dying process is complete.
Yeah.
And then, is this out of the suttas, or is this commentary, or life experience, or?
This is my experience.
Okay,
So take it for what it's worth.
okay. So how long do you think it takes for that whole process of all the senses to sort of expire?
It depends, but it can take anywhere from a few hours to a day or so. Maybe even 3 days.
Yeah, I've heard, I think maybe Tibetans may say 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
What happens, this is kind of morbid, but what happens in the case of like a particularly gruesome death where someone were to die like immediately, like they just get squashed or something?
Yeah, that's a bad death.
That is a bad death.
That's a bad death.
That is a bad death.
Yeah.
So there's no,
No, there's no.
process then initiates at that exact impact.
Yeah.
There is no time for the.
Well, there is a time, but it's like the mind is like so jolted out of that experience. There's confusion, like what is going on here?
Yeah.
And whatever it just clings to, it clings to. So that's a bad death. So that's why the Dhamma protects you from accidents and all of these other cases. Yeah, Bahia is a very interesting case, yeah. That's why I say if you become an arhat, watch out for cows. Yeah.
Dying experience quite similar to cessation experience.
Yes. Exactly. You caught it.
That's why maybe, yes.
The dying experience is basically the same as the cessation experience, getting into cessation. What levels start to diminish. Yeah. Yeah.
Another death type question. So I had seen a YouTube video by Bhikkhu Bodhi, and he had made a comment that based on his review of the suttas, he was actually open to the idea of a bardo state. And you know, as a Theravada monk, I thought that was
Yeah.
interesting. I thought that was interesting. In your review of the suttas, I mean, have you seen an opening for a bardo state, which is different than, let's say, orthodox?
The way I look at a bardo state is that it's still happening at the level of mentality. So the way I would look at it is that these bardo states that are mentioned are happening while the person is dying. So they enter through, and so some of the bardos are life review processes, some of the bardos are looking at different beings and things like that, and that's all happening in or towards the dying process. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So you mentioned during the Sutta reading that there is a way we can offer merit to
Mm-hmm.
to divine transfer from one to the next. Now, isn't that at any time? Is this like you said? There's a special time that they offer.
Yeah, but it can be any time.
It can.
Yeah.
Do they have to be in certain realms, or is it just
Under certain?
in certain realms that they can?
No, to anyone. Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because there's another, I think in one of the other discourses of Buddha where the guy, there's a story where somebody's father passed away and Buddha says he will go wherever he is.
Yeah.
Be there because if he's done bad karma, he's going to be in that place of good karma.
Yeah.
But then your story, I mean, your reading mentioned that there is a way we can still give merit to our
Yeah.
ancestors.
Yeah. So this primarily works for hungry ghosts, but you can think about sharing the merit as a form of sharing merit as we do now. In the sense that when you send out loving kindness, people feel it. People experience it. When you share merit with others, other beings feel it. So what's happening is you're allowing the possibility of a pleasant mental experience to happen for that being so that they can experience an uplifted state. And so from that uplifted state, formations arise that allow it to go upward. Yeah.
So, with that in mind, would it be a benefit of sending that loving kindness to beings who have passed over? I mean, maybe family members or other beings.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sharing that.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. There's a benefit to doing that, for sure.
Would it shorten their karma if you share merit to them, or it doesn't shorten their karma? If they were like in hell or a ghost or whatever level to your relatives?
Well, that just depends on the causes and conditions that are present there. The reason is because if you're sharing merit with somebody who's in a hell realm, it's like you can look at karma again. I'm oversimplifying this, but you can look at karma as being in a queue. And so when one particular karma is exhausted, whatever's in the next in the queue will come up. But that isn't always the case either. It can happen that because of the nature of that merit or the intensity of that merit, that it can just skip the line ahead and help that person go into a higher realm. Yeah.
I have a question, and this may be overreach, but we talked about being reborn in lower realms just a little bit today, and can people, do you know or believe or think that those beings can reach back into the human world and, I'll just say, to haunt, but somehow influence a human's life in a way that, you know, I read about angry ancestors.
Yeah.
You know, made you trip and fall, and, you
Yeah.
know, the haunted house thing and stuff like that. And I mean, but I'm really talking about overt acts of harm here.
Yeah.
Is that a thing, or is this whole line of questioning absurd?
No, I don't think it's absurd, but I think I would say that, you know, I can say in my experience and the way I look at it is there's only so much that such a being could do, you know, but not to the extent of really viciously harming somebody in the human realm. Now, if you have loving kindness, there's nothing that can affect you. I mean, those beings, when they come in your field of loving kindness, they're like, oh, they get transformed, you know?
So the influence of the loving kindness and the metta and karuna is so pervasive that
it's a karmic deterrent.
So it's a protection.
It's a protection. I can attest to it, and people who have come with me in India can attest to it too. Like when I was traveling with some people here, there could have been a lot of things that could have gone wrong.
Are we going to hear about that?
Well, there was one where, you know, we had to get to our hotel, and we were in a bus, and we were driving on the wrong side of the road, on full-on traffic. And the reason why was because our guide said, it's okay, it's fine. We're taking a detour. You know, this is a shortcut. And so he changed the lane, and there was trucks and buses and cattle and rickshaws and cars, all just an onslaught coming towards us. And the bus driver was able to deftly maneuver through all of that. And there are other times where, you know, things could have gone pretty wrong. I mean, in another trip, we missed a flight, but that was okay because we had more time to do other things. And and we were in a car or set of cars where we had something similar to that. But when you have a field of metta protecting the bus or a field of metta protecting the car, nothing happens to it. Even onslaught of traffic.
So just last follow-up.
Yeah.
So I tend to, when I'm flying, I radiate loving kindness to the pilots.
Yes. Good job.
And actually, I try to just meditate.
Yeah.
But it seems like I'm actually like part of the crew.
Yeah.
It feels like, we're all working together.
Yeah, exactly.
When we land, it's a perfect landing. It's really fun to do.
Yeah.
And it's really engaging, and it's super purposeful.
Yeah.
I just sort of wonder the practicality of it.
Oh, absolutely. I've talked about it where I go to the airport and the TSA smiles at me. It's a very rare thing. So yeah, your loving kindness can have a deep effect on people around you, or even a very subtle effect. Maybe you're standing in line at the grocery store and you're just waiting for the cashier to check you out, and the person before you, they didn't have a good experience with them, but now here you are with loving kindness, and they see there's something about you, and their energy changes. So you see these little subtle things going on. It was really funny because we missed our flight in Bodh Gaya. The lady was smiling, wasn't she? She was just like, yeah, you missed your flight. Yeah. You're never getting on that plane. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, I think all of us experience that all the time.
Yeah.
I just think everybody else is denser than us.
No. Yeah. Yeah.
If this is off topic, just let me know. But when you were reading from the suttas during the birth section, there was a part there about people would have bad rebirths if they taught against karma and rebirth, or something, taught against karma, something like that. And it sounded jarring because I just realized, oh my goodness, like we're in a Catholic place and they don't believe in karma. If anything, they would.
No, I don't think they don't. I don't think they don't believe in karma. They do. Of course they do.
No.
If you do good deeds, will you not go to heaven?
Yeah.
I don't know if I would call that karma.
Don't they have the corporeal works and the spiritual works?
No, they do, but there is like God the Punisher, right? Like you are judged and you either go to heaven or hell, but it's not based on your karma per se, like or purgatory. No, I mean, we're calling it karma, right? But we're calling it karma, but at the end of the day, there is someone that judges you. And in this Buddhist realm, there is no judger. There's no need for that because karma takes care of whatever needs to happen, right? Cause and effect naturally.
Yeah.
Not so God can say, you know what? Like people who were murderers their whole lives or something like that, the last minute they repent and God's like, okay, lets them in, right? But that was God's choice. So they don't, we can call it karma, but they do not subscribe to this Buddhist view of karma.
Yeah, exactly. They don't subscribe to the Buddhist view of karma. But it is, I look at it as karma. I look at it as karma. Because they're talking about ethics. They're essentially talking about keeping the precepts.
Yeah.
They are.
The golden rule, do unto others
As you would do unto them. Do not judge lest you be judged.
It's all down there.
Yeah, I think we brought in a priest here to talk about it. He would probably cringe a little bit.
Yeah, of course he would.
Again, when I heard it on its face, it sounded like, oh my God, so these folks are going to hell or something, or some.
Yes.
Actually, with respect to that, we could have a conversation another time about what Jesus discovered about forgiveness and what that does to karma.
Yeah.
But the question I have for you, in light of the fact that time is subjective, would it not be beneficial to, in your meditation, send loving kindness to a close relative or loved one who died years ago
Definitely.
to ease their passing?
Definitely. Definitely. Absolutely.
On a quantum level, time can flow all kinds of
Just,
ways.
yeah, exactly.
But the world's a lot more complicated.
Yeah.
than we see.
Yeah.
Where did I get that you have to do it to an alive person? Like, you know, they have to be alive, they have to be the same sex, they have to be this,
That's a spiritual friend.
Oh,
Yeah.
but
But once you get to a point where your loving kindness can flow just like that, you can send it to all beings.
good, because I kind of skipped that part. But I just wondered if that was, you know, or in fact, you know, guideline. Was it a rule or not?
It's a step by step process. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, there are times when we're able to manifest things just by thinking about it. What exactly is going on, or how does that even happen? And of course, wanting more will be craving, but I'm just wondering that there are times when I feel like I'm able to manifest whatever I think of, and how does that happen?
Causes and conditions.
Okay.
So yeah, but it does happen. Like you'll be thinking about, I could really eat a good cheeseburger, and somebody suggests, "Hey, why don't we go to that cheeseburger place?" That's very mundane, but it could happen. But I would say there are no coincidences in the Dhamma. There are no coincidences. Yeah.
When you think, oh, I should call so-and-so.
Yeah.
That's a real common one.
Definitely. Definitely. There are people who are sending compassion to different beings, and then it's like, I should reach out to that person. And they reach out to them, and that person wanted your help or wanted to say something. But are you talking about manifesting a Rolls Royce or something like that? Yeah.
Yeah, like manifesting an object of some kind. And you say, oh, I need this. And suddenly you're walking and, oh my God, there's right there in front of you.
Yeah.
Never once was it there.
Yeah. Yes, it can happen. These are called synchronicities, and they're not coincidences. They're happening because the mind is able to quicken causes and conditions because of its intention.
Not that the devils put it there for some reason.
It might be your birthday.
That's right. Yeah.
So you talked earlier today about illnesses and disorders and things like spontaneous mutation. And then you mentioned briefly like this idea that metta can actually have some sort of protective effect on possibly reducing suffering. Do you think like metta practice for unborn children might like actually reduce manifestation of things like developmental disabilities or spontaneous mutation? And if not, like, do you think that other karmic acts, like thoughts or things like that, could like enhance the manifestation of those things?
Yes. Yes. And the reason I say that is because think about it in terms of the experience of loving kindness will allow, for example, the mother's mind to be uplifted. And that could probably have a direct effect on the unborn child. So that certain genes are present or active and certain genes are dormant or remain dormant. And the same for the other side, the flip side of that. If you start to have certain kinds of thoughts that are not beneficial, certain kinds of thoughts that are unwholesome, I would say that has a direct effect on the physiology, not only of the mother, but also of the unborn child.
But I'm confused because you just said that what causes an effect, everything just happens. So does it matter if I'm going to do it or don't do it? It's going to happen either way. Or, you know what I'm saying? So I guess one of my confusion is that, is it predetermined? We just said that there's no free will. And so if I'm going to do it, that means I'm trying to manipulate something and hoping for a good result. And if I don't do it, it's going to happen. Whether I'm going to do it or not, don't do it.
No. It's not predetermined. That's the thing. It's not predetermined.
She said there's no free will, and that's not true.
Right.
The intention, right?
The intention. There's always intention there.
An intention.
So a loving and kind intention definitely has an effect on.
But we talked about causes and effect.
Right.
So when we said that, the right time always happens, whatever cause and effect is. So if my karma was meant that I was supposed to be developed, have a born.
No. See, that's the thing. The karma is not predeterministic. So here's a really nice analogy that was used by, I think it was Upandita or Usilananda, but regardless, whoever it was, you think about karma as a set of different kinds of seeds. And you plant the seeds. Let's say you have an apple seed, an orange seed, and a watermelon seed. And each, by the nature of that seed, it will grow at a certain rate. Now, if you didn't put enough water, you didn't add enough nutrients in the soil, or it wasn't getting enough sun, then that seed might grow slower or germinate slower, and it would grow slower, or it won't grow at all. So karma is not predeterministic in that sense. If causes and conditions are available for it to grow, it will grow. If they are not, then it won't grow. Yeah.
Spoke a lot about impermanence today in the dukkha session and the way that it's linked to dukkha. But then at the end, you mentioned that in the mind of the arhats, there's clearly he still enjoys impermanence, but there's no dukkha, there's no clinging. And so I'm wondering about the fascination, I don't know if Theravada or Sutrayana, with impermanence, and particularly the way that it then goes into the decay and dissolution of things. You know that when you spoke about it, like all the diseases and mental disorders and all the myriad of ways that we can be harmed, and then of course about the eventual death and the summation of the body, it triggers the resistances in me and helps them along.
Yeah.
It frees them.
Yeah.
But then I wonder how come we don't do the balanced opposite view of things as beautiful, as complete, as growing in complexity, as developing, as the beautiful, the enjoyable aspect of life. I know that for me earlier in my path, if you said, oh, life is beautiful, I'd be like, oh, no, dukkha.
Yeah.
So it would have the opposite effect. So I'm curious about the very negative decay, like grimness of this whole
I told you it was going to be pessimistic today.
It's your fault.
That's right. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. But please continue.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
I want to have that reflection from you.
Yeah, so the way to look at that is there's nothing inherently wrong with enjoying life and seeing the beauty of life, appreciating art, being in nature. Indeed, I mean, you think about why the Buddha chose to be out in the forest, because it was so beautiful and it was so serene and quiet. You go to, for example, I was telling you about Jeta's Grove, going there and seeing it and being there, the energy is completely different. It's amazing. So, yes, you can. And I think you could think about it in this way, that majority of the suttas are primarily geared towards the monastics. And the whole point for the monastics is to, really, frankly, to let go of any attachment to anything beautiful, ultimately.
Why?
Because they see that as a way of experiencing a deeper clarity of mind that is not dependent upon beauty outside.
Isn't that just more aversion to things that are still naturally part of the world? In a sense, it's like overbalancing to pushing away rather than eradicating.
I'm sorry?
Rather than uprooting attachment,
Yeah.
right, through 6R, through right effort or through dispassion, ultimately, it's like instead of grasping, you're going into the aversion side. And so I understand the notion of this being geared towards monastics and renunciates, but we're not renunciates.
That's right.
We're in the world. So,
Yeah.
so I'm curious about still going through this very grim, dark, this ocean, corpses in the river.
Yeah.
Teachings.
Yeah. It'll get better.
This is not a complaint.
No, no. No, I know. But I know what you're getting at.
Asking
Yeah.
specifically about this path, and also I guess your choice in teaching it this way, in a way that
Yeah.
I think is still in balance. I think you're also saying that you see it this way, like pessimistic, right, versus something more balanced. Let's see both the ugly, the dissolution, the blah blah, and the development and the beauty and the joy.
Yeah.
But there is beauty and joy in the path, and that's in the jhanas.
Right.
Why are
You're-
we limiting ourselves to the jhanas?
Well,
Try it out.
first of all, the beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Mm.
And
is
so,
the dukkha. So is the dukkha.
dukkha? Yeah, I suppose it could be. One person's dukkha is another person's sukha.
But I understand what you're saying, that, there is a lot of beauty in the world. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of beauty in the world. There's a lot of things that, but here's the thing. It's easier to be attached to that. It's easier to be attached to that. That's essentially what it is. If you could enjoy the world without being attached to it, and just enjoy it for the sake of it being there, that's the ideal. But the nature of the mind so far as such is that it wants more of it, or it fears losing it. So what we want to let go of is that, more than anything else.
And there's also a wholesome craving.
Yeah, that is to say, the chanda, the inclination to the wholesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories about this some years ago, I don't even remember where it came from, but they were talking about there was a student who had experienced a death in the family or something like that, and was grieving, and came to his teacher and about his sorrow, et cetera, and the teacher took this glass goblet and held it up and said, this is beautiful, and the light and everything just flows right through it, and it's lovely. But for me, I know it's broken. It's just a matter of time, and for you, you may put it, up in a cupboard and lock it away and try to protect it so it becomes a source of fear. But for me, I know that it's already broken, and so I just enjoy it as much as I can because I know it's limited. And to me, that's kind of the essence of where dependent origination and this stuff. It's not looking at the reality of death because it's pessimistic or optimistic, but it's just realistic. And so, what do we want to do? We mope around, or enjoy it while it's here, and then.
That's exactly what I want to hear.
Yeah, and so then when somebody dies, the glass gets broken, and you say, oh.
But then the key there is, can you enjoy it while you can?
Yes.
That's the thing. Can you enjoy it while you can?
But before you get to the enjoyment, you have to go through the training of death, the horrible, the nasty stuff, to let go of your aversion and let that go. Then you can really truly enjoy without grasping and wanting it to last forever. But we can't, I guess one might argue, like, we can't even enjoy what's beautiful without grasping onto it. So part of this, at least the way I see it, part of this training is, let's look at, age and sickness and death and suffering, all this like bad pessimistic stuff, and when you can deal with that, right, and work on the aversion and clinging and craving, then you can truly enjoy what comes afterwards, because there will be no clinging and craving with
Right.
whatever you enjoy.
In that case, you could fully enjoy it in that moment, whatever arises.
So that's exactly what I wanted to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier today, we were saying the indication was everything is impermanent and decaying, so don't even get close.
Hmm.
Just don't go there. What's the point?
Hmm.
Right? And so it upends or it makes it like it's a bad idea to nourish a child, to build something beautiful in the world, to help people in their goals, even non-dharmic ones. Right?
Yeah. So the way to look at that is, if you truly let go of craving by understanding the impermanence of an object, then you will just enjoy it for what it is. That's the thing. You'll be able to enjoy it as it is without adding to it, without trying to think about what will happen in the future, and so on and so forth. But that can only happen once you uproot all of that stuff. And so this is one way of looking at it.
You think it can only happen once you uproot everything?
Well, as long as you uproot craving, you can still enjoy something without wanting more of it.
And there are all kinds of gradations. It doesn't, you don't have to be absolutes.
Yeah.
I also love a lot of the very early texts. There's the Dhamma, the clinging. In the early text, the word they use is pia, which means to hold dear. And so what the Buddha was saying is that the things we hold dear cause us to suffer.
Yeah.
Which is really, I mean, if you think of your kids or something like that, I mean, clearly it causes suffering. But does that mean we're pushing away? No, it's like to really savor.
You can't whittle with kids. They make you suffer when they're alive. They make you suffer if they die. You just can't win. Teens.
George, so that's something that I got really wrapped up about. I know exactly where you're coming from. And somewhere along the way, I don't know if it's a sutta or it might have been something that you talked about once, Doug, but there was this analogy of a bunch of kids on a beach, and they were very blissfully building sandcastles. And the parents said, hey, you know that's going away. And they're like, yeah, but that's okay. I'm building the sandcastle, and look how awesome this is. And a wave would come in, and the wave would take it away, and they were okay with it.
Yeah.
And when I heard that, I was like, oh, it's not all grim and death, and right? And then my perspective shifted, and there you go.
That story is actually in the text that comes from the Buddha.
Okay.
He used that as an example.
Was that in one of your books? Is that?
Yeah, it's in one of some.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jordan.
Kind of like to rewind and about Marie's question regarding birth
Yeah.
of a being, and your response, as I understood it, was that there is an affect of metta for a couple who are, a family, that may change their genetics in some way and I really like that answer. And also, and same would hold true for the potential, for the husband or partner or father. So, but the cosmology of that, is there an effect to the consciousness that then may inhabit that? And I mean, and is that a productive practice? Because I know couples go about different processes before they have a family, and I just wondered how practical that is.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do have, childbearing age kids, and so they're kind of grappling with this. So this is a really practical question I'm asking.
Yeah. So I would look at dependent origination or any causation and causality and all of that more as interdependent. Just like mind, body, and consciousness are interdependent, So you could say for each of the links, and you could apply that on a micro level, and you can apply that on many different various layers and levels. So the reason I say that is because if you think about it, when the consciousness descends in the Nama-rupa, it requires mother and father, right? And so, in a sense, the consciousness will only go to that particular womb, which is best suitable for the fruition of certain karma. At the same time, just because it's done that doesn't mean that that is predeterministic. There's still other environmental factors that are affecting the mother's mind state, affecting the father, affecting what's happening in the biology of the mother, and so on. And so that can always change. It's always fluid, let's say. It's always in flux, what could happen.
So my takeaway is that the more wholesome states that they abide in individually, collectively has an effect on what it may attract and not attract.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So that is a macro
Yeah.
deal.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the Buddha said to try to trace all the stuff down that's vexing, it will drive you crazy.
Yeah.
So many factors.
Yeah.
There's some science out, in fact, we're probably participating in it here.
Yeah.
Dealing with neuroplasticity.
Yes, exactly.
Effective meditation
Yeah.
on our brain.
Yes.
And I know I've read, and I can't cite it, but studies that show that even the meditators can even change their DNA.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
I can't.
I've seen a study also about, and the women of this group will probably like it because it's primarily targeted towards them. I remember reading a study where it said that loving kindness could be related to slowing down the shortening of the telomeres, but specifically in women, which means slowing down the aging process for them.
It's still gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly.
But it can, you can reverse it a little bit
Yeah,
for a while.
yeah.
With good vibes.
Yeah.
And probably better food.
Yeah. But neuroplasticity, right? That's a big thing. And that is definitely Dhamma, which shows that, our environment and our choices, everything that's happening has a direct effect on our mentality. And that keeps changing all the time. Yes.
Okay, so talking about some of these concepts of karma, everything that you're saying sort of really aligns with what Westerners believe in terms of materialism. Like stress chemicals affect biochemistry, et cetera, et cetera. But you mentioned something earlier that was really kind of outside of that paradigm when someone asked the question about giving loving kindness to an ancestor who had passed away. And I just was wondering if you could comment on that a bit more, and also in terms of is it impossible to change current circumstances that have been led to bypassed karma by sending loving kindness back in time, or is that
Oh.
doing that? Is that just because it affects your body and your attitudes and your mind, which has been affected by that ancestor, and through material causes, but also through psychological causes, or is there something else going on? Is there an explanation that it is outside of materialism? Is basically what I'm asking for.
Yes, there is. I mean, so what I'm talking about when I say when we radiate metta, when we're sending out metta to all beings, if there are those who are sensitive enough, they can actually feel that metta. Somehow are able to feel it in their mind and in their hearts. And how do you explain that outside of materialism? I mean, it's something beyond just the material. And that's the mentality part of it. That I'm calling it mentality for lack of a better word, but it's just this field of metta that you send out that's running out through the field of space And all beings who are in space are able to experience that, or at least if they're receptive to it. You can also have a choice of somebody is sending you metta, right? And you can say, no, I don't accept it. I don't want it. You could resist that if you wanted to. Now, in terms of time travel metta, we could try it. But the idea in terms of ancestors and things like that, what we're saying is they've already moved on, wherever it is, and they're no longer the same people that they were as ancestors. They are now other beings. But what you're doing is you're affecting what we call the formations, the sankharas, the building blocks of how the mind is created and the experiences are created. And we're saying that metta can have a direct effect or indirect effect by uplifting their state of mind, if they're receptive to it or if they experience it, so that the next set of formations that arise allow for a better wholesome state, a better state of mind, or a better destination, let's say.
For them.
That's right, for them, for the ancestors. Yeah.
I'm a little reluctant, but I'll just say a little about, that particularly in the West, there's this idea that materiality is the material, physical stuff is what everything comes out of. And we've been looking for years of trying to figure out how conscious experience grows out of neurons. There's a lot of people are saying, and the reason we can't find it is because it doesn't. And then some basic building blocks may be consciousness itself. And that what we see and perceive in the world is just such a small spectrum, because evolution gears us towards what's useful, not towards what's real. And so the complexity of what's going on, and again, if you get into subatomic physics and that sort of stuff, where particles flow backwards and particles a million miles apart change at the same time. It's clear that what we understand is just a very small segment of what we
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
Vinegar Simpson has a book was called A Case Against Reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, see if I can put this in words, in a sense with time travel, and I'm thinking about it in terms of forgiveness. Forgiveness practice, I think, is a type of time travel. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, it's never too late. Let's say you have an opportunity to do something good
Yeah.
for somebody, and you don't do it that moment, and you have another opportunity,
Yeah.
you don't do it, like giving to a homeless person.
Yeah.
And the regret that comes into mind, so maybe you go back to your next day.
Yeah.
To find that. So that's one opportunity, but even if you miss that, I feel like it's still not too late. You can still forgive yourself, and it can have powerful implications in your mind.
Yeah.
Going back and forgiving whatever's happened. And in a sense, that feels like time travel because
Yeah.
you really do change. You change your whole perspective. on
Exactly.
something else.
Exactly. That's why I say never underestimate the power of forgiveness. Because it can have such a profound effect on so many things. You could look back on those same things that have been haunting you with regret and remorse or whatever. And as you forgive it and you let it go and you accept it and it's okay, you can go back to that same thing and it doesn't have that same effect on you anymore. Absolutely. Yeah.
I just want to add to that. But I don't feel like it's just, it affects the person who's practicing, at least in my experience. Like it does affect my mind and the way I perceived it. And there's this relief letting go. But then when I've come across that person, the way they react to me
Mhm.
is completely different. So, and then a relationship was changed. So I do feel like it's two different things happening.
Right. It's bidirectional. It's not just you, but it's also the person that you're forgiving, or vice versa. Yeah.
just through the forgiveness practice, from the dependent origination perspective, whether it has some sort of nullifying some of the karmic impact of that, whether that was hate or resentment or whatever, hatred, whatever that's holding in that formation, through the forgiveness, I wonder whether there's a release that's happening, which affects that productive karmic.
Yeah, yeah.
Which kind of results in my mind when the other lady said, when you speak to the other person, energetically it's already shifted through that. So I wonder whether that's also impacting the karma and all the bhava side of the world.
Definitely. I mean, just a shift in your perspective, just a shift in your thought, it completely changes how dependent origination can flow in that moment. You forgive the person for whatever it is that they did because they didn't understand in that moment. You forgive yourself. That's shifting your own, so to speak, flow of dependent origination. Now, there's no clinging there to that. There's no identification there to that. So that is definitely having a direct effect on it. So metta, compassion, joy, equanimity, forgiveness, these are all karmic deterrents. They allow you to mitigate how the karma is experienced. Okay. When are we supposed to finish, Jordan?
It's your call.
Oh, okay.
Long day for you.
8:30? Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's share some merit. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.